So my name is Janice Vega, and I am essentially a freelance marketing specialist and with a focus in public relations and copywriting and email marketing.
Do you mind explaining what the difference between PR and other types of marketing are? Because I know a lot of people get really confused on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, I would always say that public relations versus marketing is typically earned media attention versus typically paid media attention. So a publicist's job is to try to highlight and spotlight their clients' brand and story in an organic way that essentially just communicates the client or brand's mission, their story, the people behind it. And yeah, it's anything from newspaper articles, op-eds, speaking opportunities, podcasts, really any way that you can engage with the audience in an organic and authentic way.
Great. Yeah, thanks for explaining that because, like I said, I know a lot of people are like a little blurry on what all of those mean. Um,
Yeah,
so what role, if any, would you say that social media plays in how you grow your brand?
my brand personally, um, to be completely honest, I would say that the way that I leverage social media personally is much more from a relationship standpoint. As a freelancer, it's really all about those relationships and connections. And a lot of my personal business does come from word of mouth referrals. It's still super powerful. But a lot of times those relationships are built via social media, right? I will say that it's a little bit different for my clients and people that I work with that are in a more service based, like product based and or like they cater to a bunch of consumers with their services, because you're essentially selling a product. You want to build trust, you want to build loyalty, and you want to create awareness and brand recognition. It's a little bit different for somebody like me, though I can and have benefited from social media. I would say it also really depends on the platform. LinkedIn, for example, is a really huge relationship building networking platform that I've utilized a lot in my business. Um, but in terms of, the Instagrams and TikToks is not a place that I have personally focused a lot of my intention in marketing for my personal marketing business. However, I think there's so much potential there if that is something that calls to you to just kind of build a personal brand, right? So ultimately, social media is a really great place to show people who you are and who they'd be working with and build a platform of expertise and attract potentially new clients. So it really is just a matter of if it's something that calls to you and feels natural to you. So yeah, I think it's something I could definitely experiment with more, but I've been very fortunate to have a really great network of people around me where I've been able to build my client base in that shape, in that way instead.
Yeah, and I think that goes into like marketing in general, where it's like you don't, there's like such a pressure to have a presence on all these platforms. And it's like if your audience isn't on this platform, then don't put your energy into doing so much content for it, right?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think that there's a lot of pressure nowadays, with us being constantly on our phones, and there's so many platforms and so many channels for you to create content for, and it becomes kind of overwhelming. So my biggest advice, especially for people that are like just starting out or trying to build a brand, is just really like what platform do you like being on? What feels good to you? Where can you dedicate your energy and focus on? And just do that for now. And if that works, great. If it doesn't work, try something different. But I think ultimately, like, if TikTok feels more authentic and that's how you want to reach people, then do that. Don't force it. I think a lot of us try to do too much too soon. And ultimately, to your point, like the right audience will find you, as long as you're putting yourself out there in some shape or form. And honestly, if that ends up being maybe it's a newsletter, maybe that's your form of marketing yourself and reaching your community. Or maybe it is just like you're constantly boots on the ground, connecting with people, attending events, shaking hands, old school marketing. So But yeah, I agree. I think definitely don't feel like you have to be everywhere all the time. Um, Sometimes that works against you. So
All right. And as you're a freelancer, how do you feel that there's like what differences are there marketing your services as a freelancer versus marketing if you're like in a company or you're an agency?
So I would say that the difference between marketing yourself as a freelancer versus an agency is you're essentially marketing yourself as the brand versus a company or a team or a group. Um, there's a lot of commonalities there, but ultimately, as a freelancer, people are paying you to work with you. And so, one, they need to like you, they need to be able to connect with you. Um, and so, again, I think when you're a solo entrepreneur who is providing a service, ultimately, people work with people that they like and people who can bring value. So, really, it's just proving your value and also providing good customer service. It really just comes down to just building that relationship, building that trust one on one with the client. Um, you are the brand, right? Versus the agency. So your brand can look very similar to an agency, even as a freelancer. You can have a website, you can have a social media presence, you can have a logo. Um, but yeah, I think ultimately the difference is you are marketing yourself as the individual, as the expert versus a team and um, a mission. So, not that you can't have a mission as an independent freelancer, but many times it is just a person.
Okay, and yeah, we kind of were just touching on some of those key differences between freelancing and agency work, but it's good. From what you're saying, it sounds like to me you have to be like really vulnerable, especially when you're like in the creative freelancing agency because you're really putting yourself out there in something so personal to you.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I love being authentic and real and direct with my clients, and I think that's something that's worked well for me. And everyone's going to be different, right? You may come with a more strategic approach, or you may be a little bit more like let the work do the talking, or maybe I like to provide honest feedback, and provide results. So I think it really is just feeling confident enough in your skill sets and your expertise to be able to kind of guide and advise your clients, especially in my field. I think versus when you're in an agency or you're working for a bigger company, you can kind of hide behind the company a little bit. So yeah, there has to be a level of vulnerability and trust when you are working as a solo entrepreneur, and a level of confidence that you just have to have. Um, because it's just you. And I think ultimately you want to work with people who you get along with, who you vibe with, and they want to work with you because of what you bring to the table. So yeah, I think it's important that if you are a freelance entrepreneur, marketer, whatever it is that you're doing, that you're showing up fully authentically as yourself because ultimately you're the person that's going to be talking to people day in and day out. You're going to be providing the service. So yeah, I think that's definitely important to be comfortable in your own skin.
Okay. So what advice would you give someone who's thinking about freelancing themselves?
So I think freelancing is a really great way into an industry. I say if you're considering freelancing, um, I say go for it. Try it out. I think it's a great way to build portfolio, to expand your skill set, to dabble in different industries and see what you really like to do and build a network. So I think especially if you're going to rely on freelancing as your main source of income, it's really important that you're consistently getting out there and connecting with people. Um, you never know who's going to offer you a work or introduce you to somebody that might offer you work. And I think especially when you're starting out, like that's just the biggest thing is build those connections, and you just really never know where they're going to take you. So, and then eventually, if you find something that you love, you can grow it and scale it and, stop calling it freelance and really just kind of hone in on what it is that you love. So I'm a huge advocate of trying it out.
I really love that, especially for people who feel like they're being pigeonholed and they're like, oh, I didn't go to school for this, so I can't do it. And it's always, I think, important to go back and be like, you can though. There's no harm in trying
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, it's not for everybody. I think some people really love the consistency of having a full-time job or working for a company, organization, or a group, and that's great. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I've done that before. But it got to a point in my career where I had built so many strong relationships and I had the expertise enough that I decided to dive into contracting and freelancing because I really valued my freedom and my autonomy. And working for yourself really does give you that. And not to say that it's easier, sometimes it's a lot harder, but it's also more fulfilling. So I think it's a great way to try something out and could potentially launch a really beautiful, fulfilling career that gives you the freedom that you want. And if it doesn't work out, then there's no shame in that. You can always find work, that is more aligned with the kind of lifestyle you want to lead. But I, for one, love it.